Hello friends and welcome back to another video. It is so close to the end of 2022 that I actually cannot believe it. However, that means there's so many exciting things to come because I love the refresh of a new year. I always set a few new goals. It just is like a new chapter. Even though nothing really changes day to day, I love a new year. And last year I made the goal of reading 50 books. I did not read 50 books. I think I read about 37. However, I'm probably going to set the same goal for this new year. And I wanted to set myself a little bit of a TBR. Now, these videos I'm assuming will be all over YouTube throughout the next couple of weeks because everyone will be doing their 2022 wrap-ups. They'll be doing their favourite books of 2022, all of that. And I'm sure there will be lots of videos about what people want to read in the new year. I didn't want to put 50 books on my TBR for next year, but I decided that 23 books for 2023 was a good way to go, and that leaves me with a whole lot of books that I can still decide on later. And so I have been looking on my Goodreads and on like videos that I've been watching of other people's wrap-ups for the past few months and been making a note of sort of like the ones that I really want to read. There have been some books that have been on my TBR for ages, but I'm actually such a mood reader that I really have to be in the mood for what I'm reading. I also have very recently got into audiobooks in the form of memoirs and like non-fiction. So I don't like audiobooks if it's the author, like if it's a novel. I'm not that into it. However, I am really enjoying memoirs if they are spoken by the person whose memoir it is, if that makes sense. So 23 books that I want to read in 2023. A few of them are series or continuing on with a series or finishing a series, etc. So some of them technically make like more than one book, but we're just gonna ignore that. So the first book I want to read is actually like 7 books, but I would like to read the whole of the Addicted slash Calloway Sisters series. Now I've read the first 2 and I'm halfway through the 3rd book and I love them so far, and I would love to finish that series throughout 2023. I love the found family, I love the story, I love the characters, so I'm very excited to continue in that world and read the rest of their stories. So if you haven't heard of the Addicted series, I have spoken about it before on my channel, however, you may not have seen that, but I have read the first 2, and that is Lily and Lo's story, and then throughout the rest of the series you get to see Rose and Connor and also Daisy and Reich, and basically it's 3 sisters and then their like love interests, I guess, and it's just rich people drama. If I'm completely honest, completely rich people drama is like the best description for it. Obviously I don't know what is to come still, so can't give away too much, and also I don't want to give it away. But yeah, rich people drama. The first couple of books are all about Lily and Lo and their addictions that they both have separately. It's all kind of toxic, kind of not something you would wish for, but very juicy and very fun and interesting, and I really enjoy it. The next book series I would like to read slash finish is The Edens. I am currently on book number 2 of the series The Edens, and very similar in the aspect of it's like siblings, like each book is different siblings and their stories. And so I read the first one, loved it. I'm now on the second one, and I think there's 4, maybe 4 and a novella. I have a feeling there might be a novella. This is again is like families, but instead of, I guess it is kind of rich people because the Edens are rich. However, it's small town romances. So the first book I absolutely devoured, and the second book I am currently devouring. So I really want to finish that series throughout 2023 as well. So I really want to read The Open Your Eyes, which is the 3rd book in the Stay With Me series. So I have read the first 2 books in the Stay With Me series, and the 3rd one is the last one. I have started reading it, however, I stopped. But I really want to finish it. I really enjoyed the first 2. Again, very toxic relationships, but juicy. So the way this series starts is a girl gets sent to a boarding school in the UK, and she basically then finds out some stuff about her family while she's over there, and it's kind of prison vibes, if I'm completely honest. Like they go to school and stuff, and she's in like a college, but they're literally kind of in prison cells. Like she has like a mattress and a bed, and that's like it. And she meets this guy, and it's really toxic and hectic and really juicy, basically. And she makes all these like friends, but everyone's kind of like, they're all kind of assholes. They all love each other. I don't know. It's just juicy, and the last book is supposed to be really, really good. And I have started it. I have not finished it. It is something I really want to read in 2023 and finish that little chapter and finish and see where they all end up, because at the moment it's like juicy. The next book series I want to read is, I really want to read the Simple Wild series. I can't even remember how many books are in it, but honestly the covers just look cute. I almost could tell you nothing about the series because I don't know, but I have been recommended it. And once I'm recommended something, it does go pretty high on my TBR list. So I think there's 3 books possibly in the Simple Wild series, but I really want to read that. I also then want to read the Magnolia Park series. I know this again is supposed to be very toxic, rich people, gossip girl vibes, I believe, and like toxic relationship, but also just very addictive is what I have come to learn. Again, I don't really know a whole lot about this series, but basically Rachel loved it, and there's not many books that she's loved that I haven't, and so I'm very intrigued. However, I know there is massive, people either like love or hate this series, and I think there's like, yeah, I think people really hate it if they hate it. But toxic relationship vibes, I believe. So not something you would want to go for, but also very juicy and like fun to read as far as I'm aware. I then want to go back into my childhood, and I really want to read the Harry Potter books. I read these as a kid, and like I'm pretty sure my dad read them to me as a kid, if anything, when I was going to bed. And so I just am very intrigued, you know? And so I just want to read them again. And they're all free on Kindle Unlimited, so it's just like a lot of books. And I love the movies. Like, I'm a big Harry Potter fan. We have games and we watch the movies all the time. I love Harry Potter. And so I think I need to read the books as an adult. It's been years and years and years, and I can't really remember. Books are obviously very different to movies. And so, yeah, I want to read Harry Potter. Now, more onto like standalone books, because I've just talked about so many series that I would like to read. That probably makes up my 50 books just with the series. The Silent Patient. Now, I've had a few friends who have just loved this and recommended it and say it's incredible, and so I'm just very intrigued. It's different vibes to what I usually go. I think it's like maybe mystery thriller. I honestly couldn't even tell you. But as far as I'm aware, it's basically about a patient who doesn't talk, who's in like a mental asylum, I think. Apologies if I'm wrong. Obviously, I haven't read the book yet, but I'll talk about it once I have read it, and we'll be able to give you a bit of a better synopsis than that. But yeah, I'm very intrigued by it. I've only ever heard really good things about it, so I feel like that's exciting, you know? I then also want to read November 9. This is a book I have on my bookshelf. Most of what I read is via my Kindle because it's just easier for me. However, I do want to get through my physical TBR in 2023. And November 9 is a book that I was kindly gifted, and I feel very, very grateful for that, and so I need to read it. I also have heard very good things. Some people say it's their favourite Colleen Hoover book, so I'm very, yeah, just like nosy. And so I'm very intrigued. I haven't not liked any of Colleen Hoover's books so far, so I'd be very surprised if I just didn't like this one. But yeah, it's been on my bookshelf for a few months now, and I need to read it. The next book I really am intrigued to read is called Clean, and this is a book that I have only heard of through Rachel. And when I say Rachel, I mean Rachel Catherine. If you're not aware, I'll link her channel down below. She's all over YouTube books. She's awesome. Recommend. If you don't already watch her, I'd be very surprised, but you should go and do that. But she recently spoke about the book called Clean, and is about an addict who is trying to get clean. And I believe it's all set in like a rehab facility, and you learn a lot about all sorts of different addictions and drug abuse situations and problems. And I just kind of love stuff like that. I've watched a few TV shows that are very like drug heavy, and I just find it so interesting and very sad and just wild. Honestly, it's so far from my world. Like, drugs is not something I even have ever been remotely interested in, and so I feel naive to a lot of it. I'm not overly familiar with a lot of it, and so yeah, I think this book would be very interesting and maybe a little bit eye-opening, and just good to learn something different in a book as well. I then also want to read Beach Reads by Emily Henry. This is another one on my bookshelf, on my physical TBR, and I got sent this one as well. and it has been on my TBR for a long time. I love like a kind of like a happy romance. I haven't read anything by Emily Henry, and from what I've heard about her is that she is very like contemporary literature and romance. So I think her books are very good to read, and the writing is really nice, and it's very enjoyable experience to read books by her. And so that is on my list as well. Next is A Court of Thorns and Roses. Now, I'm halfway through this book and have been for months, and I just have struggled a lot, but I just feel like I need to do it. I need to prove to myself, I need to get through it. From what I have heard and what people say is that the first half of A Court of Thorns and Roses is bad, and then the whole series just gets better and better, and apparently you just click at some point and understand what's happening, because so far I have no idea what is going on in this story. I just feel so confused, and I'm not much of a fantasy girl, and I would love to, because I would love to just broaden my horizons a little bit more in the book world and learn a whole different genre and enjoy a whole different genre. However, so far I'm struggling, but I feel like I just need to make it through, and then I'll be able to know if I want to continue on into fantasy and like that sort of thing, or like more of that series, because currently I have just really struggled to get into it. But I hear everyone is the same, and the first half is not good and the rest is incredible. So we will see how I end up feeling about it. I really want to make it through, but yeah, that's all I'm gonna say. Next book I would love to read is One True Loves by Taylor Jenkins Reid, and this is like the one book out of her backlist that I haven't read that are just like romance books and not in like the Daisy Jones world. She has like 4 books that are in like one universe like together. They're like companion novels, I guess. They're all like set in the same world. Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo, Daisy Jones and the Six, Malibu Rising, and Carrie Soto is Back. So those 4 are like together, and then I feel like she has another just like collection of romance novels, and I'm pretty sure this is the only one I haven't read, but it also sounds like the most interesting out of all of them, because it is about a woman who is like married to a high school sweetheart. They've been in love for years and years, and then one day she gets a call that on his like flight, or like he goes away and he like dies, and she then has to mourn that and figure out who she is without him, and has to move on with her life at some point. And she finds this new partner, and she settles down and falls in love again, and then she gets a phone call and it's her dead husband, and he's like, oh my god, I found my way back to you, and he has been living this whole time. And she obviously then has her first ever love, and then this new person that she's in love with, and has to like, you know, navigate that. And I just think that's wild. So I think it's a story I would absolutely devour, but I just haven't got around to reading it yet. And so 2023 is the year that I'm going to do that. I also want to read More Than Words by Mia Sheridan. I have read a few Mia Sheridan books now. I've read 3. I have absolutely loved Archer's Voice, and I absolutely loved another one by her, which I can't remember. I didn't love Kyland. It was good but not incredible, but More Than Words I think I will really enjoy. Honestly, I don't know the story very well, but it is one that is very high on my list. I then also want to read The Last Post by Renee Carlino. I have read 2 Renee Carlino books in 2022 and I absolutely loved them, so I would just love to make it through more of her backlist, and this one pops up a lot as a suggested for me, one that Goodreads thinks I will like and one that Amazon thinks I will like, so I'm going to give it a go. And that is, I just love the way Renee Carlino writes, and I have really enjoyed both of the books I've read by her. I've absolutely devoured them and found them incredible. So fingers crossed to be one of my favourite authors, realistically, if more of her books are like that as well. Again, going on the same kind of theme, I really want to read So Much More by Kim Holden. I have loved both the Kim Holden books I have read as well. One of them, Brightside, is like one of my favourite books. If you haven't read Brightside, I highly recommend. It is very sad, but incredible. And then I read another 1 or 2 books by her as well and absolutely loved them. So I think it's time for some more Kim Holden. I like the way she writes, I like her storytelling, so yeah, So Much More is also one that pops up as recommended for me very often. I then want to read Love and Other Words by Christina Lauren. Now this was recommended by a couple of you actually, and honestly I know nothing about it, but it has been suggested, and so sometimes I just love books that have been literally just, I've been told to read them. So that is one very high on my list this year as well. I then want to read The Brothers Hawthorne. It's not out until 2023, but it is on my list because I've read the Hawthorne trilogy this year and I absolutely devoured it, loved it to pieces. So I'm very excited for when the next one comes out and I can devour that as well because I just love that whole world. I have no idea what this fourth book will be about, but the story is a young girl gets given literally billions inherited to her by a dead man who she has never met. To get this inheritance though, she has to go and live in his house for a whole year with basically a bunch of people who thought they were going to get the money. So he had 4 grandchildren, 4 grandsons I should say, and they kind of just assumed that they would get a lot of his inheritance. They got like a little bit each, like I don't know, a couple $100,000 was like scattered between like housekeepers and this person and that person. Like everyone sort of got like a few $100,000, but there was literally billions left to this like teenager. And so she sort of works with the brothers to find out why she was given this money. She's never even heard of this man, yet for some reason he was in her will to receive practically everything. And it's basically like escape room vibes, but in a book. Like there's clues everywhere and things you have to work out, and it's a little bit of cheeky romance in there as well. And it was just so much fun. Like I just absolutely devoured all 3 of these books and I highly, highly recommend them. And so when the 4th one comes out in August, I will be devouring that as well. That is all of the fiction books I want to read. Now I do have a fair few books on my list this year that are like memoirs and like non-fiction. Atomic Habits is a book that has been on my list for kind of years and I really want to make use of it this year. I've asked for it for Christmas from my family, so fingers crossed someone has ticked that off my list, because I feel like books like that I like physical copies of as well. So hopefully I can get through Atomic Habits in 2023. It's something I'm very, very intrigued by, and I would love to just like work on my creating more healthy habits. I then also have 101 essays that will change your life. I believe this is just something you can sort of pick up, put down, read a few essays, stop, read one, stop. Just, they're all very interesting, thought-provoking, that sort of thing. So I'm very excited for that. I also want to read Tiny Habits, the small changes that change everything. I think this is something that, like, I love habit making and habit creating and all of that sort of thing. And I really want to work on that in the new year. It's sort of part of my goals is to just use my time more efficiently and just create good, healthy, lifelong habits. I also want to read Love Stories by Trent Dalton. Trent Dalton is a Brisbane-based author, I believe, so we love supporting Australian authors. And he sat in a like busy street in Brisbane and pretty much just got people to tell their love stories to him. So some of them are like really short, some of them are really long, some of them are about their true love who they got to live with forever, some are about the loves that people missed, some are like the loves that they lost, and yeah, just very, very interesting. I love love, and yeah, I think it would be really special to read about people's love stories. And I think such a cool concept of people just like literally seeing this man with a typewriter in the middle of a busy street in Brisbane and telling them their love story. Then I want to read Heartstrong by Elodie Pullen. If you don't already follow Elodie on Instagram, I highly recommend. She is an incredible, I don't even know how to explain her because my heart breaks for her. Basically, Elodie was with her partner, Alex, for a very long time. They called him Chumpy. And he was like a pro surfer and snowboarder and like just did heaps of extreme sport and like went to the Olympics and stuff, I think. Like was a champion extreme sport person. And he also like wrote a lot of music. And Elodie and Chumpy were trying for a baby for a long time, and they were going through they were just about to start like IVF, and unfortunately he died in a skydiving incident, and he like had a shallow water blackout. And I've listened to podcasts by her. I follow her on Instagram. She has her own podcast with her friend Chloe, which is incredible. It's called Darling Shine, and they talk about a lot of things regarding grief and infertility and all sorts. And Elodie then ended up being able to retrieve Chumpy's sperm and has had a daughter with him. And yeah, I just would love to like learn more about that story. I feel like I know a lot of it because I do follow her on social media, but I would just love to do, you know, always more to learn, and I would just love to do that. So that is very high on my list. And the final book, number 23, Glad My Mum Died by Jeanette McCurdy. Now this has been recommended to me by so many people, especially after I said that I want to listen to more memoirs that are then like narrated by the author. And apparently it's just incredible. And if you don't know who Jeanette McCurdy is, she was on iCarly. She was Sam on iCarly, and basically talks about her like traumatic and intense relationship that she had with her mum, which I just think is wild. And her mum then dies, and talks about all the ways that she's like glad that her mum is now dead, because the relationship, like in hindsight, I believe it's like a lot of it's in hindsight, she didn't realize how toxic it was at the time, and now looking back it's like, holy shit, my mum used to gaslight me 24/7. And like her mum was like the reason she was in the acting business, and that she supported her family, and it's just a wild story and very interesting. So that is the 23rd book that I would like to read in 2023. Holy moly, that took me a lot longer than I expected to get through, but that is my TBR for 2023. I would love to know your TBR for 2023. I love hearing other people's book goals and recommendations and what they want to read and what they're currently reading. So feel free to drop your TBR for 2023 down below. DM me on Instagram with what you're planning on reading. It's one of my favorite things is to talk about books and to hear about what other people are planning on reading. Thank you so much for watching this video, especially if you've made it this far, because far out I have been talking for so long. But thank you, I really appreciate it. If you're not already, please feel free to subscribe. I upload every week, and give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it. I'll see you in my next video, which will be very, very soon. Bye.